Hey guys, I just wanted to share a quick video with you, kind of trying to give you an overview of what I'm seeing us doing in terms of having our worship group. I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to be a blessing to me. I'm hoping that I can be a blessing to you. So, what kind of do I have in mind? Well, we're coming from really different backgrounds. We've got EV Free, Presbyterian, Charismatic, non-denominational. We've kind of got a lot represented here, but some things that I think we all have in common is number one, we really want to worship Jesus and the triune God together. And I think that's going to be really good. I'm just really blessed that you guys want to do this. Number two, I think all of us, for maybe little different reasons, are in a place where we're willing to evaluate and maybe reevaluate what worship is, what worshiping together can and should look like. For me, I'm coming from a place where over the years I've kind of become a little more disillusioned. Maybe that's a harsh word, but a little out of sync with what I see to be the human centered emphasis in your typical modern evangelical worship service today. That either it tends to be centered around training people to be good Christians, and that's very human centered, or it seems to be centered around being seeker sensitive and trying to bring people in. And I'm always going, what about worshiping? What about focusing on God? So I want to reimagine, reevaluate what we do together. And so I'm kind of seeing this in a cycle of three steps. First, we're going to worship together, not necessarily this order because it's a cycle. After worshiping together, I want to send out some videos kind of looking at aspects of worship. And then we'll meet together, we'll fellowship together, and we'll talk about the ideas that I put out in the videos. And then we'll come back together and we'll worship together again. And hopefully our worship will get stronger as we go. And perhaps as importantly, you will have things that enrich you that you can take back to your church if you lead worship, or to whatever your kind of main place of worship is. Let me kind of try to give you a little overview of what I have in mind for each part. First, with a worship service together. This has grown out of what I've been doing with my family really for years. But especially during COVID, we really kind of did it a lot more when we just couldn't get out. And I just didn't want to just throw a video on of someone else worshiping. As we've done it again and again, I think there are three distinctives that I think will really fit well with our little group that have kind of emerged out of worship with my family. First of all, it's pretty informal, and that's of necessity. I don't have access to pyrotechnics or laser lights. I don't have an organ, and I'm not musically trained, so the music is really bare bones and informal. Secondly, it's super kid friendly. I figured out pretty early on that to keep my kids' attention, I was going to have to keep it fast paced. I was going to have to keep it interactive, and I was going to have to keep their attention. So for the sermon, now, eventually, if we do this long enough, I would like to maybe start actually preaching a sermon myself, maybe if that seems to fit. But at first, we're going to stick with what I did with my family, which is namely, instead of me getting up and preaching a sermon, we would watch some vignettes, some videos of like the Bible Project or Buck Denver or something that would help to explicate what the scripture passage was about in a very accessible fashion. And then I would ask the kids to interact. Now we'll have a larger group, so the interacting part might be a little less because don't want to spend too much time everybody interacting. But I kind of want to keep that structure at least at first. So it's been informal, very kid friendly. The third thing, though, is that it has taken as its starting point a liturgical kind of traditional, even high church liturgy that one might expect to see in a Presbyterian or Anglican church. And you might say, well, how does that fit with the informal and the kid-friendly? Well, the informal, it's obviously way stripped down. But the kid-friendly part, I think you would be surprised because so much of your typical liturgy is about call and response and can be adapted for interaction. And that, along with the repetition of phrases, I think is really more engaging and helpful for children than you might expect. A call and response, reading, saying the Lord's Prayer together, passing the peace of Christ to each other. These are all things that force the people in the worship service to interact, and are great for kids, in my opinion, in that way. So those are the three distinctives I think that you're going to find that I hope you're blessed by and I hope you benefit from. Now, then after we're done, I'm planning to send out a little video, and in that video I want to break down a little aspect, kind of a little part of why we worship and what we do when we worship. And the way that I want to do that, and this might change as we go, but basically what I have in mind is to just kind of break down some key passages related to one aspect of worship, and then try to present a variety of ways in which faithful Christians have understood this particular aspect of worshiping God together and corporately. So, for example, maybe the call to worship. We could look at call to worship biblically, and there's certainly biblical passages to look at, and then how different traditions do that. The Lord's Prayer. We could look at the Lord's Prayer and how different traditions have interacted with that. Those are fairly uncontroversial. There may be more controversial areas that we might end up later on treading into. I don't at any point want to say this is the Presbyterian Reformed view and you have to follow this view because it's the right view. Rather, what I want to do is say, here are some key biblical passages. Here are some ways in which Christians have faithfully tried to do this aspect of worship together, how they've understood it, and give you some options to think theologically about it. And then we could come together over food, break bread together, and fellowship together, and hopefully get some good dialogue between us. And it's completely fine if someone from a charismatic background and someone from a Baptist background have a very strong difference of opinion. We could still worship together. We could still agree to disagree and probably come out stronger and enriched for it. So I'm really excited about this. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to lift all of us up. Already just talking to you guys, my spirit has been buoyed up during times of uncertainty and question. So I've been praying for each of you by name. I'd like to ask that you pray for us as well. And I look forward to seeing you soon. Peace of Christ with all of you.